Most grateful to you. Thank you very much indeed. If I told you I feel like Roger Daltrey with this microphone and lead, 99% of you won't know who I'm talking about. Hands up who does know Roger Daltrey. Yes, you see. Well done. Lead singer with The Who. Just like that. That ends the cabaret. Welcome back after lunch. This is what they call the graveyard shift, where you've all had a marvellous lunch and you're feeling a little bit sleepy, maybe haven't had that all-important injection of caffeine. So it's my job and the job of my three very special guests to try to keep you awake for maybe the next 45 or 50 minutes. And we're going to do that by hoping what will be a very stimulating discussion. Little bit of housekeeping. We're all fascinated to hear your novelty ringtones on your telephones, but spare them for the next hour or so if you would. So just put your phones on silent. And I really do want interventions from the floor. I don't want you guys falling asleep and we having our own little cozy chat up here, okay? So hands go up. Do we have roving microphones? Kumparita? We have a roving microphone at the ready. Excellent. Okay. A quick word of introduction. Now, you've got your program, so I'm not going to read line for line the very impressive biographies of our three guests. Please just take a minute to study that. The reason why I'm here is that I am president of SCAL International Bangkok, and it's my very great pleasure to be part of the Parta Youth Forum. And I have to tell you, it's some time since I was connected with any event with the word youth in the title. So I'm feeling, as indeed I think probably Andrew is as well, feeling young again today. Well, he knows who Roger Daltrey is. I think we're of a similar generation. SCAL is the world's oldest and largest travel and tourism networking organization, formed in 1934, about 18,000 members in 90 countries around the world. We work very closely with the Parta Thailand chapter, and I'm delighted to see in the corner the chairman of the Parta Thailand chapter, Mr. Bert van Welbeek, a very good friend of all of us. Welcome, Bert. We work very closely on a number of things. Our Christmas lunch, for example, raised about 70,000 baht for the charity Sisters of Mercy here in Bangkok. So as well as networking and doing business, we do try to raise money for good causes. And we're also in Hua Hin and Pattaya, Samui, Chiang Mai, and Phuket. And we also have a very thriving young SCAL organization as part of SCAL Bangkok. And there are one or two members from Young SCAL Bangkok here today, as is our director for Young SCAL, Mr. Scott Smith. And Scott, would you just stand up? Scott is actually working for the competition. He's a lecturer at Assumption University. Delighted that he let you pass security, Scott. The reason, in a sense, for introducing Scott is I think there's an opportunity, I hope, perhaps through Walter Jameson's good offices, to engage with young students at this university who are involved in travel and tourism. So with that brief word of introduction, I'm going to, if I can use this clicker correctly, just going to run through, before I introduce the guest speakers, one or two brief facts and figures. The government, in its infinite wisdom, has said it wants to get 2 trillion baht in tourism revenues by 2015. And to do that, the Prime Minister says we need to have 30 million international arrivals coming here by that same year, by 2015. Then I read a story that said the ministry was going to cap that number at 26 million. I'm not quite sure how they were going to cap it. Maybe just arrange for the airport to be closed again, or say, no, we're full, you can't come in. I don't know. Then the story was denied, and the latest we read is that the ministry is going to be presenting a tourism roadmap to the Thai cabinet, which will be next week. And the ministry says it's time to revise the plan. This is coming, of course, from a ministry where we have a new minister for tourism, who, by all accounts, doesn't know very much about tourism, so it's up to us to educate that minister. He says laws and regulations don't match, they're now out of date, and the new plan will help to create tourism competitiveness in Thailand. Maybe our three guest speakers will have something to say about that. But it does create some classic conflicts. in my view, whether we go for numbers against quality of tourists, whether we, at all costs, have sustainable growth as opposed to increased tourism revenues in a managed way. Do we simply take the money and not worry about protecting our national assets? And is it always a case of the public sector versus the private sector, or can the two meet and work together amicably? So what is best for Thailand's tourism? Well, I'm going to be putting 3 questions to the panel a little bit later on, but now it's time for me to introduce our 3 guests. And if I can start first of all, please, with the Managing Director of Universal Hospitality Joint Venture Management Company of Novotel Bangkok, and my goodness me, that is a mouthful, Kunjitamat Ketvoravit. Kunjitamat, come up. Welcome. Just take a seat, and your 2 guests will be with you shortly. Our next guest is the Managing Director of what is now known as the Sampran Riverside. A lot of us in this room will know it as the Rose Garden. It had a wonderful golf course associated with it, which I think was affected by the floods and sadly is closed at the moment, but we hope, golfers like me will hope it opens again very soon. Will you please welcome the Managing Director, Kunarut Navarat. Arut. And last but not least, for a second I thought it was his father walking, Kunchanin. It's not. It's the son of one of Thailand's most well-known hoteliers, who's now the manager for operations and profit improvement at Dusit International, Considerit Donna Vinik. Considerit. Just take a seat if you would. So, ladies and gentlemen, in a little while, we're going to put, on the basis of those few slides I put up, we're going to pose some questions for our 3 panelists. 2 of our panelists just want to get down here and say a few words. And we're going to start, I think, with Considerat. No slides to go with it, I think. I think there's just one. Is that right? Yeah. And he's promised me that it's going to keep the commercial short, but your 30 seconds of fame is about to begin, so far away. Hello. If you would.
Thank you very much. For us, most of you probably know us as a hotel company, but I am proud to say that we are actually the hotel and education company, because of 2 very, very components to our business, so to speak. So we have hotels, which we have here in Thailand, and we are now transforming ourselves from a very national company into more or less a regional company, and also to take this far beyond that into the global stage as well. So we have basically been doing a lot of revamping and restructuring of our very, very old company to gear ourselves to grow abroad. In terms of the education part, we also have our Dusit Thani College, and I can see I have a few of my colleagues here as well sitting. And we are also have 2 campuses here in Thailand and 4 campuses in the Philippines, with under us about 12,000 students studying under our curriculum. And we are also looking to expand this further, because obviously we believe that the human capital and the industry that we are actually in now goes very much hands in hands. Is that short enough or long enough?
So short you caught me unawares. That's absolutely absolutely marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Moving swiftly on then to Kunarut, if we can. Again, a brief. As I mentioned, you've rebranded. You're now Sampran. You were very well-known Rose Garden family resort.
Yes, we're a family resort just 1 hour from Bangkok, actually. Less than 1 hour from here, actually. And Rose Garden is because 30 years ago we used to sell roses to the markets in Bangkok, actually. Bakhong Talat, we used to sell roses here. But then we moved on to become a hotel, Thai houses, a Thai village. And now we just rebranded ourselves to be Sampran Riverside just last year, because we no longer have roses. We have a few, but our focus is on the traditional way of life of Sampran. So we have the culture in the Thai village, we have the organic farm across the river, so the traditional way of farming, the local wisdom. So everything that we have that reflects the traditional way of how people live in Sampran. So that's why we call Sampran Riverside. I have one more slide, please. And basically now we are actually embarking on expanding what we believe, our belief, into the whole of the Sampran community. So we are jointly promoting organic agriculture, getting the funding from many NGOs in Thailand, and also getting the knowledge from the Kasetsart University, many universities supporting us. And we are actually doing this as a business model, and we also have a weekend community market on our property. Okay, so that's long enough or short enough? Yeah.
That's again absolutely perfect. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. Right, let's get down to the three key questions. And I will divulge now that our panellists have had advance notice. This is not BBC News Night. They're not about to be ambushed. Oh, you would like to say a few words now?
It's okay.
No, feel free.
No, that's fine. Please go ahead.
You can keep your powder dry until the first answer is ready to flow, okay? So, remember what I said just now? There's some classic conflicts that are going to arise if the government is pushing for 2 trillion baht and 30 million visitors. So my first question is, to all three of you, we'll start with you, Chitama, if we may, is there an inevitable conflict between the drive for growth and revenues and the need to preserve and protect the nation's heritage? Or can we find a way to work in harmony together with both those objectives?
I don't see a conflict between drive for growth and revenues for sure. I think Thailand as a tourist destination has been doing extremely well during the past few years, even given the deterrence of the natural disaster and all the political upheavals that we had over the past few years. Even taking all that into account, the number of tourists continue to rise. I think we can continue to do even better if we could manage our destinations, various destinations around the country, more properly, and taking into considerations respect for national heritage sites, natural assets that we have. There's enormous room for growth, and hence revenues that would follow.
Who would be responsible for managing the assets, though?
All of us, all parties involved. Not just one particular party, not the government, not just the customers, not the tourists. All of us, especially the tour operators, the hoteliers, everybody that's take a piece of it, benefit from it. We all have to be responsible to our environment, to our destinations.
So you are not despondent. You feel we can have growth.
Oh yes.
Increased revenues, as part of what Partner now calls the complete visitor economy, but without endangering the long-term heritage of Thailand.
No, sustainability is the key word here. We have to. Tourism has to be sustainable. Like over the past weekend I just went to Phuket, and it was my first time in many years. I went over to Ta Chai Island. It's one of the most beautiful islands down there. It's just pure white sand beach, and it's so nice and refreshing to know that they only open five months in a year, from November to 6 months, from November to April, and another 6 months they would close. So that the surrounding could nestle, and rest.
Who takes that decision to only open 6?
The government is
local government or national?
National government. And I think many of the islands around the area are undergoing the same thing. Taking that I think we could do that with everything else that, it doesn't have to be a national asset. It could be, I think we just have to take into consideration that if we want growth to continue to grow, all of us would have to take care of whatever that we have as ours.
Do you think there's a role, just before I move the microphone down the line, is there a role for schools and universities to make sure that all their syllabuses include this sense of responsibility about the care and protection of the environment, irrespective of where they're going to take a career in travel or tourism?
I think it's even more important for the next generation to be more cautious, to be more responsible, to feel the responsibility that they have to, take care for the future of our tourism. I think we just have to take social costs, into the cost of running business. That's the only way it's going to be from now on. If we Pattaya, for example, I'm glad that it's turning around, but many years ago, 10, 20 years ago, it was completely, eroded. And I think everybody over there realized it now, and so they have turned it around, cleaned the beach, cleaned the quality of the water to the best they could. I mean, it's not Phuket, but it's getting much better, and they're trying to install the infrastructures, put in place infrastructures, necessary ones, and it's expanding left, right, and center.
Well, I guess they have to do that in Pattaya because they're certainly not going to be able to control the numbers of people coming to Pattaya.
Mass management.
Yeah. Consider it. You, of course, come from the family that founded the Dusit hotel chain. There are those of us who remember when the Dusitani Hotel, just to the south of Lumpini Park there, was actually the tallest building in Bangkok.
That's right, in the mid-70s.
Times have certainly changed. Now, you represent, I guess, the next generation, part of next gen, of travel and tourism leaders. Where are you coming from? You've not long left education. I mean, were these issues being discussed when you were still studying?
Yep, sure, definitely. I mean, I have to agree with Kunjit Mars as well that obviously the whole notion around this has to be based on the terminology of sustainability. Obviously, how we achieve that is a different story. I do think there's a conflict at the moment between growth and what's basically being done to our national asset and treasure. Before I came here, I promised Kun Bert that I'm not going to be criticizing anyone, but I have to say that we
want you to criticize. Absolutely.
But to be honest, for me, and I travel, the length of Thailand quite a lot, and I see what's going on, and clearly what's going on is not what is being done here in this generation, but the generation actually before us, because there was no regulation in place, and there was never a regulation in place then, and that is actually none now, so to speak. What happened is that we let people just run riots and just open hotels and developed all these brand new real estate deal and everything without taking into the considerations of the national environments and everything else, and I think that is a huge conflict here. For me, I was also involved as part of the opening team of the Dusitani in the Maldives. Now, the government in the Maldives, they actually went a long way to protect their national resources because that is all that they have. Clearly, we're not island people, we're not the island nations, but yet still we need to consider the fact that we need to protect this for the next generation to come. There's also this saying as well that for the conservationists, the world is actually not given to us by the previous generation, but it's actually borrowed from the next. And we have to take that into consideration because what we are seeing now is, and tourism came in Thailand when we are actually developing, and it's actually one of the main factors that actually developed us as a nation as well, I believe. But then the regulations that are actually being issued by the government has to come hands in hands with the pace of the development that is actually going on within the country, because now otherwise people are just going to run anarchy. And now if you go somewhere down south, you don't even need to have a hotel license to open a hotel. There are so many red tapes and there's so many corruption or whatnot that's going on. I think what is important is for us to educate the people. That is clearly apparently it's not being done enough as well, to educate them and to make them aware that this national treasure will not be here to stay. One day it's going to be gone. You see what happened to places like in Railay, in Krabi, where it, 15, 20 years ago was one of the most beautiful places to do rock climbing, and now you go there, you can't even swim on some of the side of the destination anymore because of how dirty it become. And some of these changes are irreversible. So I think you're right also that everybody has a big part to play, but I think it needs to be lead from somewhere, because for us as a private sector we can be shouting and screaming, and we can just say to the policy maker and the decision maker, this needs to be done, but as nothing is being done. PP for example as well, there's nothing is being done, there's no regulation in place, people just build whatever they want to build, and this is the crisis that we actually come to.
Are you saying we can't leave it up to public civil servants and politicians, the private sector's really got to take control?
I think we need to have a more of a louder and more of a united voice to raise our concerns. I think a lot of people now, and maybe I'm stereotyping, but I think there's a lot of people now who want to take an easier way out, and this basically is a result of it. I think the government obviously, once they have the regulation and everything in place, the rest I believe will follow. But unless we made our voice being heard, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Just before we move on, could I just ask, is there anyone in the room from government departments, the Ministry of Tourism? Which ministry? Oh, you're from. Welcome. Because
I am so impressed with what you guys are doing there. With in terms of developing the resort, all the guidelines, all the strict guidelines that you have to do, and you guys are island nations, and obviously it's the closest thing you have to a home, and I can practically say maybe some of the staff that we have, half of them may very, very, very much care, and half of them may not care that much, but then by having all this system and process and just guidelines in place, it really helps to build the benchmark for what to come next.
I was going to ask you, Concern, whether you may have done this already. Do you have a case study of your experiences in developing a new property in the Maldives that's available to circulate to meet and to interested stakeholders?
No, sure we do. The thing about within the Maldives is, and I hate to use Maldives as an example because it really is a special case, but they basically give us the guideline of what we need to do as a minimum. Obviously in Maldives, again, and this is what I'm going to come next as well when talking about the whole of the market, the Maldives has a very, very healthy tourism market because of the control and the regulation that is done. By having all this controlled, you can actually use all these regulations to promote the green energy to become a part of your asset, to become a part of your unique selling point and the product differentiation, by having all these things involved. So actually, in this case, the drive for revenue and growth and the sustainability actually goes well hands in hand because of the whole regulations and the product differentiation that people actually put into the market. And this is why I believe it's a very, very healthy market actually.
For now, thank you very much indeed. Kunarut, you're in the private sector, you want to make money, you want to increase your
talk
revenue.
About growth, I know we haven't really grown in the last 50 years, so we are probably completely opposite to consolidate. We just still have one property. I think definitely there is a conflict, but it depends on how much. What is the growth you're talking about? It's all relative, and I think growth is good, but it's got to be sustainable, like he said, and it's got to be well regulated. I think you just can't throw in numbers like 30 million visitors or without actually putting thoughts into it. And maybe you're not trying. I think what everyone's trying to do with the numbers is really proving or actually making a point of or just really just want to win an award or actually without actually putting thoughts into what's behind the growth. So I believe growth is good, but it's still you still need a lot of thoughts put behind it.
Can I just ask everyone in the room who Who thinks it's a good idea that we simply drive for more numbers and that we try and get 30 million visitors here by, well, it's only 2 years away now. Hands up if you want to see 30 million people here in 2 years' time. Not many. So hands up. Well, maybe it's a good idea if they're all 30 million high-spending, responsible eco-tourists, which won't happen this time of hell freezing over, obviously, but it's a dream that you could live with.
If you include domestic tourists, you're already getting 30 million right now.
Yeah, but we're talking about international arrivals now.
What's the difference? Everybody throws garbage and consumes water and everything else. What's the difference?
I think tourists consume more water than domestic travellers. Another debate for another day. Because I'm speculating on that one. So generally, people in the room don't think we simply go for numbers. I have no idea where the Prime Minister got. She's probably watching. We are being streamed live around the world, are we not? Yes, we are. The power of the internet. So at this moment, the Prime Minister could be ignoring what's happening in Parliament. She could be glued to her laptop screen. This is your chance to get a message to the most powerful lady in the country. Okay, so 30 million is not good. So we want to see controlled expansion, but in a sustainable and responsible way. Because you three think that that's feasible. Can I just ask Conchita about, could you tell us this place, this island that's only open 6 months of the year, could you give us the name again? Right. I'm not familiar with it. Hands up if you've been to this, because it's
beautiful. Yeah, similar. Yeah. Part of it.
Mind you, I think we've got about 5 days to get there. I think they're closing next week, aren't they?
That's correct.
May need to leave it till November.
Most gorgeous islands I've been. I've not been to the Maldives before, so. But I disagree with you when you said that we don't want 30 million. I think we do want 30 million international
I didn't say that. I was asking if we did.
Pardon me. I think 30 million international arrivals would be challenging, would be ambitious, but at the same time, if we do it the right way, it will drive necessary revenues, for our country. Currently, I think there are a lot of government agencies that are trying to put into place certain regulations to control or to manage destinations better, but of course so much more to be done. I mean, Kun Imtiaz talked about garbage in the sea. It's everywhere. In Pattaya, it's everywhere. But whether we have 30 or if we have 20 million, garbage is still there if we don't start today to start managing it. So I like big numbers, and I think the government should aim high, and at the same time they should put qualified people to start working on it, That's what I feel.
Thank you very much. Just before, final point from our panelists before we move on to the next question.
Well, the thing is, for me, I mean, I completely agree too. Obviously, the big number is everybody likes seeing the big numbers. The government looks good, the private sector, feel the glimpse of hope, so to speak. Another question that I would like to also ask is that whether we have the infrastructure to support all these numbers of tourism, the whole flow of the whole tourism that will be coming into the country. I mean, you see what's going on in Manila as well. There, basically, the city has done so well in the past in terms of promoting tourism. They have come up with this new campaign, More Fun in the Philippines, and everything. Yet then, you go to that airport, and it's the same airport they've been using for the last 30, 40 years. I mean, you need to have the basic infrastructure to really support the growth, because without it, you're going to have a lot of mess, in the private sector.